Here we go. So my talk is a bit different than the first two. I do not have a lot of analytic data, but it's about my efforts for my household to take personal responsibility for removing the lifetime carbon dioxide emissions. And this presentation is going to cover a brief bio of me, the reasons to go carbon neutral as a household, what I have to do for my household to be carbon neutral in the future, and what I have to do to cancel out my past carbon dioxide emissions. And then a question, I don't have an answer to it yet, but I am very suspicious that putting granite dust in the flue gas, not to, in a way that it stays in the flue, it doesn't go out into the atmosphere. You never want to put particulates in the atmosphere. But I'm very suspicious that putting granite dust in the flue gas will remove the carbon dioxide immediately. So my bio is, in 1977, I became a household carbon dioxide emitter. That's the year that I married. My wife and I had both lived in our separate homes until then. At that point, we had our own household, our own heating bills, our own electric bills, our own cars. So that's when we became a household emitting carbon dioxide. The next year, I got my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. I then spent 20 some years working in the offset printing industry. A lot of people think there's not that much science or chemistry for printing. We remember taking a potato and cutting an image in it and using that for block printing. But in the offset printing, we're forming and reforming competing water versus oil microfilms 25 times a second, as we do 25 images a second. And so there's an awful lot of chemistry and physics and science that goes on it. I spent a few years retraining. I became a high school science teacher. I am now officially retired, which means I can pursue things like biochar and carbon dioxide. So why should households become carbon neutral? Why should households take it upon themselves? Well, the governments of the world aren't doing it. The industries of the world aren't doing it. We can't wait for them. We got to do it on our own. And the thing that you hear in the news all the time is global warming from increased carbon dioxide. And global warming is a huge concern. If we don't get it under control, there's going to be probably massive wars as people have to relocate. But my biggest concern is that over half of the carbon dioxide we emit ends up in the ocean, in ocean acidification. When we get the oceans too acidic for the carbonate reefs and shells to form, the oceans will stop making oxygen. We're looking at global catastrophe, as in 90% of everything dying. So that's why I'm interested in trying to not be responsible for killing the world. Now, there's biochar equipment commercially available, but I can't find something the right size for a household to try to offset the carbon dioxide emissions. Fab stove from Blue Sky Biochar. I actually plan to buy one. My wife just discovered this for me yesterday. It's a fairly new thing, but it's too small for a household to offset all carbon dioxide emissions, I need to, jumping ahead in a number, I need to be able to make about 45 kilograms of biochar per day in order to offset my carbon dioxide emissions. Then there are large solutions like emergent waste solutions. They're based in Canada. That's too large for a household. They're sized for a municipality. In fact, one of their targeted customer bases are handling all of the municipal waste, solid waste for an entire city, converting it into biochar. So I'm looking for good equipment size for 50 to 100 kilograms of biochar per day. I can't find that. I can find plans, but I can't find one I can buy. So what are my specific goals? I want to permanently remove an amount of atmospheric carbon dioxide equal to what my household has released. Many of the ways that are being talked about doing forest planting, I do not see that as being complete enough. I do not consider forestry planting permanent. But if we have vegetative growth, as in forest, grass, leaves, any biomass, and we convert it to biochar, and even then it's not permanent, and then we incorporate it into soil, I consider that permanent removal. And I am a spoiled American. I do not want to reduce my CO2 by living simpler. I do not want to, I want to be able to maintain my American lifestyle and not put any CO2 in the air at the end of everything. It also must not release any volatiles or particulates, which means it won't be releasing any toxins if there's no volatiles or particulates. I want this to be something that can be run in a residential neighborhood and none of the neighbors complain. Unless you tell them, they don't even know you're doing it because it runs smoke-free, odor-free, no emissions at all. As a side effort of what I'm doing, I have already achieved a 90% reduction in my household municipal waste. The stuff that goes to landfill, I've already achieved a 90% reduction in that. And one of my goals is to determine the effectiveness of carbon dioxide removal via granite dust and the flue gas. I suspect that I can double the carbon dioxide removal, but if that works. And I'm going to have to design and build appropriately sized equipment to do this. So to completely erase our carbon footprint, first I needed to calculate, and there's some estimations in there, the total amount of fossil fuels burned due to my wife and I as adults. And while we were raising our two children, it includes the emissions for them when they lived in our house and drove our vehicles. Remove this amount of carbon from the atmosphere and incorporate it permanently into the soil and not release waste or toxins. So some of the conversions and equivalents that I used that might be of interest is conversions between, I'm going to talk everything in metric tons. If you, T-O-N-N-E is a metric ton. Most of us Americans don't talk that way. And it's 1,000 kilograms or 2,205 pounds. Let's see. If in America, on average, for every kilowatt hour of electricity produced, there was 0.336 kilograms of carbon dioxide released. And now that I look at that, I'm all of a sudden afraid I have a decimal point in the wrong place. I'll check that later. But of interest, if you make biochar, for every kilogram of biochar that you make, that is 3.68 kilograms of atmospheric carbon dioxide removed. The atmospheric carbon dioxide was actually removed in the production of the biomass, but when you make the biochar, this amount of what you removed is made permanently removed. And that it's about a 4-to-1 ratio between fresh biomass to finished biochar. Fresh biomass has a lot of water. You got to dry out first. And then there's about a 50% conversion of dry biomass to biochar. So I needed to make 2 calculations. How much biomass must I convert for the yearly releases of my carbon dioxide? And how much biomass must I convert to negate or balance out the past 45 years of releasing carbon dioxide? And I'm currently 65 years old. I hope I have another 15 good years in me. So I need to figure out how much do I need to remove per year so that in 15 years, I have removed all of the carbon dioxide that I have emitted in the past. My household has emitted in the past. So I calculated my yearly and my 45-year and my yearly amounts for my vehicles. It turns out from me driving my vehicles, I have averaged over the last 45 years 1.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. And that's less than most Americans. For electricity, I've averaged over the last 45 years of emitting 3 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. And the natural gas I use to heat my home and cook my meals and run my clothes dryer and my hot water heater are about 5.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide. So in total, I've been emitting 10 metric tons per year. So over 45 years, that's 456 to get specific metric tons. Now, I have 2 adults living in the house. So my individual amount is 5 metric tons per adult. And in the United States published data is that there's 15 metric tons per year per person. And I'm saying that I only admit that in my household, as individual people, my wife and I have only emitted 5 versus 15. Does that mean that we are 3 times better than the average American? No, it doesn't, because these carbon dioxide emissions are not taking into account the carbon dioxide emitted to make the things and the services I buy. That extra 10 tons per year per person, the difference between 5 megatons and 15 megatons, it's probably the emissions from the industrial and commercial sectors. Do I buy everything that industry produces? No, I don't buy tractors. I don't buy semi trucks. But the food I buy was produced with the tractors. the food I buy and the things I buy were transported via the trucks. The energy used to run office buildings and warehouses, those office buildings provide services that I buy: health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. The warehouses store my goods before I buy them. So it is, I do believe it's fair to say that I share in this extra 10 tons per year per person that comes from the industrial and commercial sectors. So can I claim that I have completely eliminated carbon dioxide due to me if my house and vehicle itself are carbon neutral? No, I can't. We have to get, but it's a big step in the right direction. It's the first step out of, say, 3 steps. Now I needed to calculate how much biochar do I need to make. So I'm just going to go down to the totals. My household emits 10 megatons of not megatons, metric tons. My household is emitting 10 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. Over the 45 years, I have emitted 454 metric tons. How many tons of biochar do I need to produce to offset my yearly CO2 emissions? I would need to be producing 2.76 metric tons of carbon dioxide of biochar per year. How much biochar would I have to make to eliminate the 45 years that I've just been releasing it and not doing anything? That'd be 124 metric tons. Now, if I come up with a process to do this, and if I run it 250 days a year, that's 50 weeks, 5 days a week. And I want to completely eliminate my past use and do that 45 years. I want to eliminate over 15 years. I can't do it in one. It's just way too much. 1 year. So spread it out over 15 years. And also be removing the emissions for those 15 years as they occur. I would have to be making 44 kilograms per day. That sounds doable to me. It's bigger than what I can do with that little fab stove, but I should be able to build equipment that would have me removing 44 kilograms a day. So, for the yearly releases in the future, that 2.76 metric tons of biochar per year, that's 11 kilograms a day. That's really doable. To offset my past 45 years, I want to not only not sin in the future, I want to remove my sins from the past, repair the damage from the past. I needed to make 124 metric tons of biochar. If I do that over 15 years and I do it 250 days a year, that's the 33 kilograms of biochar daily. So 11 for the current year, 33 kilograms for past years. I come to the 44. So I need to come up with a thing that makes 44 kilograms of dry biochar per day. Be able to do that for 15 years. And without doing any sort of further pollution. No particulates, no toxins, no volatiles emitted from it. So what I've done to date is a basic flood design, top lit updraft. This is a very common thing. You can find lots of designs and demonstrations on the internet, on YouTube. Basically, you have an inner container, you have an outer container, so you have a double wall with a space between. As the pyrolysis is going, air is either drawn or sometimes a blower is used up and reintroduced, and you get flames at the top. The heat from the flames causes the pyrolysis to grow downward. The flame is not burning on the wood itself. It's burning much like a natural gas stove above the wood itself. And so I chose to do it with my inner circle, my inner tube was, the burning chamber was made out of a 12-inch air duct. My outer container was in garbage can, about a 30-gallon garbage can, upside down. I cut a hole in the bottom, put the tube through it. I cut holes in the sides to let air in to come up. And you see here the little tiny holes. As the air comes up between the two walls, it comes in here, and this is where the flames come out. The flames are not down in the material itself, the flames are above it. I then put I decided to do something with the heat that's coming off this thing. Tremendous amount of heat's given off besides making biochar. And how did this help me reduce my municipal waste by 90%? All the plastic that is not recyclable was the majority of my garbage. I had no idea how much of my garbage was plastic waste that the local communities will not recycle because it's not a water bottle or a soda bottle. It's all of the wrapping and bags and foam insulation that all of our materials compact in. So I put a grate on here. Inside of this upside down bucket, I have a can that I put the plastic in. And rather than just letting the flames lick around the can, I put this over this inverted pot on top, and it holds the heat in, and my plastic melts much faster. Down here on the side, I just have a piece of sheet metal on the ground and 4 bricks spaced that I can pour my melted plastic in there and make plastic bricks, which I plan on making sidewalks and some patio stuff with. So here's a closer view of that inner chamber. This is where all of the wood chips or wood split into fairly thin pieces. I find wood split to be no more than a 1/2 inch thick, works very nice. At the bottom, down here, that's a wire cloth, hardware cloth, so about a 1/4 inch mesh, so that air can go up into it. This is a 1/2 full 5-gallon bucket from one batch of the biochar. And this is one of the plastic bricks I made. And I haven't built a sidewalk yet. I show everyone my brick and we drop it on the ground and we throw it on the ground. It's very durable. I would not build a building with it. It's plastic. It will deform if under pressure for a long time. But for something like sidewalks, patios, I anticipate it to be great. And this is not an idea I originated. I copied this from lots of YouTube videos. People in India, people in Indonesia are doing this. I don't know why no company has made a system for a municipality to run to take all of the plastic waste that cannot be recycled because it's not clean enough, or it's not the right type of plastic, or it has the wrong coloring agent in it. All of that should be melted down, made into bricks. It could be a money-making venture for municipalities. and then sell the bricks for people to build patios. So when making biochar, only 50% of the carbon is converted to biochar. The other 50% is converted to syngas and liquid fuels. If you wanted to cool it down and condense out the liquid fuel, you could bottle it, put it in a tank, and use it as a replacement for diesel. It's not that simple, but basically, yeah. I don't cool it down. I take all of that syngas and liquid fuel and burn it to help provide heat to make a very efficient, high temperature biochar process. It's still way more heat than I need. So I'm looking at what can I do with that heat? I've already talked about melting the unrecyclable plastic that I generate in my house into paver bricks, but you could use it for cooking. You could use it if you build a heat exchanger in it to heat my home or heat the water. And I believe that heat will help me remove carbon dioxide from the exhaust gas. So if I take biomass and 50% of the carbon is converted into biochar and 50% is converted into syngas and liquid fuels, and that gets burned, that means 50% of that is re-released as carbon dioxide. I believe that can be gotten much closer to zero. Okay, here is a picture of a few days worth of plastic that I am no longer sending to the landfill. I am melting down and making patio bricks and some other things out of it. And it's a common thing that in America, our news reports that 90% of plastic waste is unrecycled. And the news media says it in such a way that I interpreted it, and most of my friends interpreted it, that Americans are too lazy that we won't send our plastic bottles to a recycling center. They'll show pictures of plastic bottles, soda bottles, whatever, water bottles, milk jugs, and they'll say only 10% of plastic is recycled. And it's like, how lazy can we be that we won't recycle it? Well, it turns out it's not that we're lazy. It's that 90% of the plastic that's used in America is not in bottles. It's in wrappers and they all just melt together. This is something else I did with my melted plastic. I wanted to raise up a bed. This is a bed leg. I wanted to put a trundle bed underneath it. And you can go out and you can buy for 20 bucks leg risers that you put underneath your bed to raise it up high enough to get a trundle bed, an extra mattress on wheels underneath. I have 2 grandkids. When they come over, I can pull the trundle bed out. We have 2 mattresses. When they're not there, I can shove it back underneath, and it makes a lot more room in the room. Well, I didn't want to spend 20 bucks to buy it when I'm making all this melted plastic, so I bought 4 plastic flower pots. I filled them with melted plastic. I made a mold in shape in the ground that the plastic pot fit in, and then I poured the plastic in so that the plastic pot wouldn't melt from the melted plastic. The ground kept its shape and kept it cool. And then on top of that, I attached a steel can from tomato sauce, tomato paste, which is the perfect size for the leg of the bed to fit into. This is very sturdy. You can push on it and it doesn't tip over, it doesn't fall off. It's very safe. So I used about uh, 2 kilograms of plastic for each riser. This thing is big enough that it's about 5 pounds of plastic. Now, what are the sources of my biomass? Well, in the past year, I had to take down a sick box elder tree. A storm came through, half of it blew down. We were afraid the other half, which was leaning toward the house, would come down onto the house. And so I hired someone to come in because I couldn't take it down, it would fall on the house. And they cut it down and they cut it into 1/2 meter lengths and hauled most of it away for firewood. So not biochar. But I had some of the interesting pieces saved. My wife and I are planning to take up the hobby of turning wooden bowls on a lathe. And this will be our source of wood for our wooden bowls for the next few years. The wooden bowls, if we make good ones, people will be using them for 100 years. I will consider that a permanent removal. All of the shavings that come off, I will biochar. I also had an ash tree that died from green ash borer. That had to be taken down this winter also. The trunk I had saved, the fella said, let me just cut it up. I'll take it away for firewood. I said, no, leave it. I have a man with a portable sawmill coming in the next couple of weeks to cut it into lumber. My son makes guitars and I like to make bookshelves. So that's what we'll do with that lumber. Okay. Now I want to talk just when I say to people, I want to remove carbon dioxide from flue gas with granite dust. I don't have a prepared slide here. I apologize for that. They say, what are you talking about? First off, when mountains weather, it is a reaction between carbon dioxide in the air, carbon dioxide in rain, reacting with the silicates that granite's made out of, converting the silicates into silica, sand, and carbonates that wash down into the ocean. Those carbonates are potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium carbonates. People have known for at least 100 years, if not longer, that if you take granite dust or basalt dust and spread it on a farm field, the fertility increases. Well, that's because the granite itself is not increasing the fertility. It is reaction with the carbon dioxide that's in the air, in the ground, changing the silicates to silica, sand, and releasing the potassium, magnesium, calcium carbonates. So those minerals get released naturally, but it takes hundreds or thousands of years to do. But our governments are still saying, let's pay farmers to spread granite dust in their fields. And that's great, but it's going to take a long time to remove the carbon dioxide. Since chemical reactions are temperature dependent, I have been wondering for over 20 years, why can't we expose the hot flue gas exhaust from our power production to granite dust and remove the carbon dioxide, form the carbonates right there in before that flue gas is released to the atmosphere. Love to give away ideas. I tried to give this idea away to the colon 20 years ago, and they wouldn't listen to me. So now I'm going to try to do it on a household level. And do we have any questions at this point?
Hi, Doug. I have a quick question. It was a really nice presentation. Um, I just wanted to know, like when you are using a reactor which you have fabricated, right?
When I'm using,
The
uh,
reactor, yeah, this one exactly.
yep,
So, like how much it cost you to fabricate it?
the garbage cans were old garbage cans.
Okay.
To buy them new would be about $30.
Mm-hmm.
The um, the this 12-inch air duct
Okay.
to buy new would probably be about $30. I bought it used from it was being uh, it had been taken out of old construction and was being sold for anybody that wanted it. So, and I got that for $2. Um, the This pot on top, I now melt my plastic in this pot. I have it upright. I want to make plastic quicker, so I melt it in here and I put another garbage can on top to form the oven around it. A pot like this would cost about $50. I found it at the and picked it up for free from the recycling center. Someone was just throwing it away. Um, I'm very good at finding things for free.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
but so if you bought everything new, you're under $100.
Oh, that's great. It's quite efficient, I
And
guess,
if you're a
coming from you.
scavenger like me, you can do it for almost nothing.
So you haven't used any welding or anything else?
This has no welding. I have a pair of aviation snips to cut holes and a drill to drill holes for
Hmm.
the small holes here, the big holes here.
Okay.
Um,
So,
I do um, a and it's something I dream of doing this summer, but I didn't include pictures. I don't like to include too many pictures of things I'm dreaming of, but I picked up some just normal oven stoves, kitchen oven stoves that people were throwing away because they were broken. But I just wanted an insulated case with a door that opened and closed. And I'm going to retrofit those into a chamber to do the biocharring in, and then have it exhausted through a second stove, which I will have my trays of. Uh, I will have several trays in there where the gas has to pass through in a serpentine fashion past the trays of granite dust, and um, I'll have that in a second oven before that exhaust gas, flue gas, is exhausted to the air. The If you're like me, you'll say, "Well, where am I going to get granite dust from?" Um, I contacted a local um, monument maker, gravestones. In America, we love our granite gravestones, and they said, "Heck, we got tons of granite dust. You can have it. Come and get it. Haul it away. We got no use for it."
okay, one more last question. Like, what is the maximum temperature that it can tolerate while producing biochar? How, like, how much high we can go in terms of temperature?
Um, from the colors that I see in the flame and in the metal, I have not invested in a temperature probe to actually measure it. But from the colors, I would say I am running it about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's roughly 500 Celsius.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Now, I'm running it hot enough that the, and actually that brings up an interesting point. There's two reasons I put this inverted bucket on top of the plastic I'm melting. One is it contains the heat and surrounds the plastic with heat. Two, the air in there is pretty oxygen depleted. At the temperatures I'm achieving, the plastic is a roaring flame with the volatiles being given off from the plastic, and it's incredibly stinky. But when I put this top on, all of the fumes coming off the plastic are, the only way out is down here. And I kept it close to the flames underneath. Basically, the fumes have to go through that flame underneath, and the stink is gone. The fumes are being burned. But when I pull this cover off, I have to be careful because I have to have a piece of steel ready to throw over the top of the plastic until it cools, because it spontaneously ignites. I'm well above the spontaneous combustion point of the plastic. And yes, the first time that I did that, it was a surprise. I'm glad I kept my eyebrows.
Hey, Doug, can you all hear me?
Yes.
This is Rich Filosky in Louisiana, and I had a quick question for you. Have you been able to convince your colleagues, neighbors, or others to replicate what you have done in your own home?
I'm not to the point where I'm trying to get them to do it. I want this more streamlined. I want it less labor intensive. But that is my goal. Is I'm hoping to get 1 million people in America doing this, either for themselves or maybe for their entire neighborhood. I mean, right now I've got a lot of biomass because of those trees I took down, but I need a lot more biomass. I'll be collecting from the entire neighborhood when I get there, which means all of the grass, all of the, I'm trying to get to a slide here. Here we go. Have you guys ever seen this slide? It's carbon dioxide in parts per million measured at the top of that mountain in Hawaii, measured per month. And this is worldwide, wherever you measure carbon dioxide. There is an increase in carbon dioxide during the last half of autumn, the winter, the first half of spring. Then there's a decrease in carbon dioxide the last half of spring, all through the summer and into the autumn. Increase in carbon dioxide as all of the leaves and grass from the previous year decompose. A decrease in carbon dioxide as the plants are growing new annual biomass. It's one thing for plants to grow woody structures like tree wood, but an awful lot of the biomass that's grown is leaves and grass and things that decompose naturally the very same year. Well, how big of an impact is that? How much biomass is it taking to pull parts per million down that much? And this general trend upward, that general trend upward is due to human combustion of woody biomass and fossil fuels. All the things that humans burn to drive our industry causes a net increase of 2.4 parts per million of carbon dioxide. But the annual growth period in Northern Hemisphere decreases it by 6 parts per million. Now, can we seriously say we can collect 100% of the annual biomass and convert it to biochar? Of course not. One, there's a lot of it is in remote areas. Two, if you removed 100% of the leaves and from the forests, you'd really mess up the life cycle of things in the forest. But we could collect a significant portion of it, and it could be biochar rather than sent to landfills or sent to regional composting centers. So when governments are saying, we're going to pay farmers to not grow food, but to grow biomass for energy production, I'm going, no, there's all sorts of biomass that we can be using for biochar and get energy out of making the biochar. And an awful lot of that can be done on a neighborhood level, an individual household or a neighborhood level. So yes, it is my plan to publish all of my results, all of my plans, all of my how to do this, and to try to get as many people doing it as possible. Right now, I'm happy that my neighbors don't complain, especially when I didn't know how to prevent the stinky plastic smell.
Nice neighbors. Hopefully they'll remain that way.
Yeah,
All right, well,
I agree.
Thank you for that, for your presentation. Yeah. Do you have contact information at the end of this, or is it going to be available to everybody who's on this conference call?
I am on, is everyone here on LinkedIn? I'm available on LinkedIn.
Okay. I hate LinkedIn to communicate, but
You hate LinkedIn?
To communicate, but I like email.
Here.
So we can start there. We can start there.
No. Here, I'll do something for you.
I don't want to be a pain in the neck because I can.
No, I don't mind. I just have to figure out how to get out of this mode.
I'm already searching you in LinkedIn.
Doug, you can just put your contact information in the chat.
That's a good idea, Gloria.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to get back into the edit mode of my thing. Thank you, Gloria.